He literally looked like he wanted to jump out of his seat and call this guy a lying dog-faced pony soldier and challenge him to push-ups. Hello, welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for your support. On my channel, I like to give my opinion and perspective on things that are happening today, issues that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us trying to raise children in the insanity known as today's society. We are not CEOs of big corporations, we are not part of the mainstream media, and we do not live in the Hollywood bubble. We are also not politicians in Washington, D.C., but we do have to live with the consequences of the decisions being made and the narrative being pushed by the people in the previously mentioned categories. If that describes you, please like this video, leave a comment below, and also share it. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel. All of these things help me to grow my channel and hopefully to connect with more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha so we can stay connected on all platforms in case we lose one. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So yesterday, Biden decided to sit down and do an interview with 60 Minutes, which was really bold of him, seeing as the man needs a teleprompter just to remember his own name and what position of office he's holding. And even then, the teleprompter just doesn't seem to be able to keep him on track. But in the clip, this particular clip that was kind of circulating on Twitter, the interviewer asked him about the stock market nosedive, this report that came out on Tuesday showing that inflation is now at 8.3%, and just how deeply concerned a lot of everyday people, including myself and probably a lot of the people watching this, how concerned we are about our grocery bills and our energy costs, and just how much this inflation spike over the last 2 years has really impacted us. So first off, he deflects at the end to energy costs coming down and gas prices coming down. And I don't know about you guys, but my energy costs have not come down. I break into a sweat if my kids leave anything on that they're not using, if there are any light switches on in rooms that nobody is in at the time. And we should all be mindful of those things anyway, but we really cannot spare energy. If we're not using something, it needs to be off. If we're not in a room, the lights need to be off. We just have to be that much more mindful. And it's not just a matter of preserving energy, it's the fact that it costs so much, and every second of unused energy or unnecessary energy makes an impact. As far as food, I almost had a stroke the other day when I came into the computer room where my son was, and there was a bowl of cereal just sitting there that he hadn't eaten, and it was sitting there and it was soggy and disgusting and gross, and I almost completely lost my mind because I don't know if he had touched it at all. I don't know if he had just forgotten that it was sitting there or what the deal was, but I was like, we cannot afford to waste food. I don't want to waste food even under the best of circumstances, but I said, this is almost half a box of cereal right here. I'm like, you have no idea. Food costs so much right now. You cannot take food that you're not going to eat. Don't take more food than you plan on eating. And whatever you do take, please eat it, because I cannot afford to be throwing stuff like this in the garbage. And I know that a lot of families are going through things like that right now, where it's that much more stressful, especially, when kids are kind of prone to wasting things anyway, but having to be that much more on top of it because every spoonful of food costs so much more than it used to. So it's expensive and everybody feels the impact. So 9% of households in the country right now, those of us that do not live in Martha's Vineyard or do not live, in one of these multi-million-dollar mansions in a gated community, that you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, where every penny counts, where you're really cutting things out of your budget, where you're cutting down your grocery lists and really trying to get by on the bare minimum and coming home with far fewer grocery bags than you used to, but spending the same amount of money, if not more, on those items. But it's interesting, when asked about these issues, Biden's response wasn't care and concern for everyday people, and the fact that, most families in this country are living paycheck to paycheck now and really wondering how they're going to continue to afford to feed their families. He wasn't concerned about the impact that this was having on people. He was more offended about the way this question was asked, and that this guy was making him look bad and pointing out that a 40-year high inflation rate is really a terrible thing to have on your record. He literally looked like he wanted to jump out of his seat and call this guy a lying dog-faced pony soldier and challenge him to push-ups. But that's what Biden is. He's this tough guy. He's like one of those guys that walks around asking you to punch him in the stomach as hard as you can. But if somebody actually does, then he gets offended that somebody does it. So not to mention, he in this moment when he's pushed about the fact that inflation is high and it's still continuing to go up, regardless of how little it goes up, even though every incremental increase in inflation impacts everyday people far more than apparently he realizes. Every point that it goes up matters. But the fact that he's pushed about inflation being high, didn't he just sign an Inflation Reduction Act? Wouldn't this be an opportune time to brag about the fact that he just signed that and all of the things that are in this bill that are going to reduce inflation and help the American people? He didn't do it because the bill doesn't reduce inflation. And many experts have said even if this bill has any kind of impact on inflation whatsoever, it won't happen till at least the year 2024 or 2025. And even then, it'll be an impact that isn't even notable. It's not even worth measuring. So it's interesting that he didn't take the opportunity to say, hey, we just had this big party celebrating what we're going to do about inflation, because he knows that it's not going to reduce inflation. And he knows that everything that they were just celebrating at this elite party of his, where none of the people there understand or care what it's like when inflation continues to increase and go up and the cost of food and goods goes up for everyday people, as they're having this big party, bumping elbows with elites and having live entertainment and, a party full of food and wine, celebrating themselves and patting themselves on the back. That what was it that they were celebrating, if not the impact that they said that they were going to have on reducing inflation? So, and we know that it's really because they were celebrating not what they were doing for us, but what they were doing for themselves. And the way that he responded in saying, you're acting like this 8.2% just happened, like it just happened this week or overnight. Probably about one of the dumbest things to say. I mean, pretty much on par with how Biden responds to everything, but it's not... The issue isn't that it's a 40-year high. The issue is that the interviewer is making it sound like it all just happened now. Like, you're making it sound so much worse than it is. But that's like saying, well, sure, fentanyl is killing thousands of people every month in the US, but you're acting like they all died yesterday. Or sure, homicide rate is up, but you're acting like everyone was murdered this week. Like, we're at a point where murders are just happening at a steady pace. That's what it sounded like to me. So it's not the fact that this is happening. It's just the fact that the question was framed wrong. It made him look bad. He didn't like the way that it was worded. He felt personally attacked. None of the response was centered on, hey, that this is impacting everyday people and really having a negative effect on, people's finances and their housing, and really, they're feeling the effects of it in pretty much everything that they do. But it's just one more example of how completely disconnected these people are from the rest of the country. They don't have to struggle with their grocery bills. They don't have to choose between rent or food. They don't have to cut things out or go without, or live with the daily stress of wondering how much they'll have to cut back next month. I've heard conversations happening in the grocery store, even in just the gas station the other day, when I'm out shopping and I can hear people and they have these just big, deep sighs. They're just feeling so defeated every time they look at these price tags and they're increasing. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's at a slow pace or a fast pace. The fact is the prices are going in the wrong direction, and they're not, there's no indication that there's going to be any relief from that anytime soon. I mean, and I had this thought the other day. I mean, there's this particular bag of apples that I really like to buy from Walmart. They're my favorite apples, and it used to cost me about $5 for this bag of apples. And now this bag costs me almost $8. I believe it's between $7 and $8 now. And sometimes I really have to sit and think, like, can I even afford to purchase this right now? And how long is it going to be before, you know, things like fresh apples are really reserved only for the elite, and or before they become this rare luxury that I get to enjoy. And you know, truly, these people in Washington, D.C., these elites, these people that are throwing these big parties over, you know, patting themselves on the back and, you know, living in Martha's Vineyard and truly, you know, thinking that they did this big, wonderful thing by taking 50 illegal immigrants into their community and really not understanding how much that the border cities and communities are struggling. It just shows how much these people don't care. They don't care, because if they did, they would want to find out how big of an issue this is. I'm not saying that they have to show that they care by bringing all of these people into their neighborhood, but they don't even care to find out how big of an impact these things are having on other people. This is not a political or partisan issue, because they're not choosing who they make suffer based on who you voted for. They're making Democrats and Republicans suffer with inflation. We are all paying the same costs for grocery bills. We are all squeezing our monthly budgets and stressing over rent and food and energy prices. And the difference is the leftist base is willing to let them get away with it and make excuses for it and justify it. And if their elite government celebrities tell them that it's a sign of being a virtuous person to live on a really tight budget and go without, then they're just, you know, they're just happy to do it. If any of this were happening under Trump, we know that they would be screaming and crying. So that's just my thoughts on this whole interview. I thought it was just another, you know, nail in the coffin. These people just don't care. They don't care. And inflation is going to continue to go up. Prices are going to continue to go up. And, you know, they can like to continue to blame Trump for all of these things, but we are 2 years into this presidency. So you got to wonder, at what point does this fall on Biden's shoes and his administration? Because, you know, as he said on his campaign trail that, you know, the buck stops with him. He will never blame other people for issues. He will never, you know, put the responsibility on someone else's shoulders. You know, the buck stops with him. I apparently can't seem to say that phrase. But, you know, he will take responsibility for everything. And I have yet to see him take responsibility for anything. So let me know your thoughts. Comment down below. Share what are your thoughts on this issue. Did you see the interview? What was your reaction in watching it? Let me know. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.